Welcome to another episode of the Wandering Watercolor. In today's episode, we are painting the 9th page of the Everyday People watercolor coloring book. It's part of the series of books that I make myself. I make it all through the use of lithographs. So if you're here because you purchased one, I really appreciate it. Thank you. I do work very hard on those. And if you're interested in buying one, it'll be in the description. Otherwise, you can just pause the video, sketch out the image, and then continue playing it so you can paint along with us. And with that, let's jump over to the drawing board. So this is the image that we are working on today. It's two girls, friends, maybe girlfriends. They're holding hands and they're kind of just walking along. This is what the finished image will look like. I may change up some of the colors, and that's fine. It's very rare that you get the exact same perfect colors when you're using watercolor, just because there's so much variability. And you can always, if you prefer, you can always change any color in the image. That's part of the thing that I like about these books, is you can make the same image many different ways. As always, I'll be using the little brush that comes along with the little palettes that I sell. These are the palettes. The link for that will also be in the description. I'm finishing these tutorials with these brushes, but I will have to stop using them because I can't find a supplier for these brushes, so it's becoming harder and harder to get a hold of them. So I'll have to discontinue using these brushes, but I will make updated tutorials with whatever brush I use, just so that people are aware of how to use them and everything, although it's pretty much the same thing. I also just like painting, so I'll keep making the tutorials. Basically, I always recommend having a scrap piece of paper and a rag and a jar of water on the side, and also just a plate. This is a little porcelain plate that's from a soap dish, or it's a soap dish, and I'm using it to mix my colors on. But you can use any plate, glass, porcelain, as long as it has a smooth surface that you can just mix your colors on. And with that, let's get started. The very first thing that we will be mixing is the jeans, the jean color for the girl on the right here. Basically, the way we do that is we will grab a little bit of the dark blue, maybe that may be too much, and then a little bit of brown. The two colors kind of neutralize each other and make a really nice gray color. Gray bluish color. Well, this one's a little more on the brown side, so we'll have to add a little more blue. Actually, I get a little bit of the light blue and throw it in there. I'd say that's a pretty good jean color, except the first wash, as always, we want to make it just like a light colored wash. So we'll add a little bit more water here on the bottom and then grab some of the pigment and use that. So, okay, so that's good. Basically just a flat wash. Maybe get a little more water and just kind of spread that. And that's a very good base for the jeans. Remember, jeans, not always, but often, they have kind of like a faded look. Like some parts of them are very faded, some parts much lighter, some darker. So I'm gonna dry off my brush completely and then just pick up a little bit right here and also right here, because that'll help us emphasize the highlighted or lighter areas of the jeans when we move forward once this area is dry. And rinse off our brush. And while that's drying, we can actually go ahead and cover in the tank top thing that the girl on the right is wearing. And the way we do that is we just grab some of the black, and this is the only color that we're going to be using. We don't need to mix it in with anything. We're just going to add a little water down here at the bottom. We still want it to be fairly dark. Remember, all watercolors dry much lighter, so we can always build up the value. But initially we just want to kind of do a dark tank top, kind of like a wash. So just a flat wash. Just right here. There we go. Just we'll add a little more shading to show some curvature. But for now, that's all that we want to do. And with that, we can move on to the girl here on the left. So we're just gonna let that dry. Both of these parts are still drying. And actually, rinse off your brush and then dry it off with your rag. And then you can actually go ahead and pick up a little more from the, and it's just very faint. Like it doesn't, it's when you pick up the color like this, it doesn't, it's not like an exaggerated emphasis on the highlights. I think there was a little bit of color on my brush there, but it helps, it just helps ever so slightly create that faded look. And rinse my brush again. And then what I'm going to do is grab a little bit of this burgundy, a little more right there. And then I'm going to grab some of this brown and mix it in. Actually, I'm going to pick up some of this color and then rinse it off. Going to grab a little more brown. A little more. And then, because this is too bright of a red, we want to dull it down a little bit, and we'll do so by grabbing just a little bit of the green, mixing it in. So that's pretty good right there. And we're just going to take this color, we're going to cover the underneath where the shadow of her sweater that's around her waist. We're just going to cover that underneath area. We're not going to do the whole sweater, just the shadowy part. Lay it in right there. And also right there. Okay. So that's good. We'll rinse off our brush. And then we're going to grab a little bit of the light red. We're going to go with the light red. And then mix it in a little bit right there. Grab a little bit of water so we can dilute it so it's not so concentrated. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So then we're going to go ahead and cover the rest of the sweater, because it's a lighter red, but we just don't want it to stick out too much. So we're going to do that. The shirt itself has some sort of a flannel pattern, but we won't worry about that just yet. First, we're just laying down the base color, and then we can add on top of it whatever we want once this area dries. Okay, just like that. Nice and easy. If you go a little bit outside of the lines, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, we'll rinse off our brush and then dry it off. So far so good. So next, let's see. This area is still a little wet. Still, it's almost 100% dry. But we'll give it a little bit. What we will do next is we'll get a little bit of water, dilute this black right here. This black has a lot of blue in it. And one thing we can do is grab a little bit of brown and mix it in. And the idea is that we kind of get a very light gray, very neutral. We don't want it to be too blue or too brown. So this looks like a pretty good neutral gray. And what we'll do is there's stripes on her jacket or whatever that is, some fashionable clothing. We're just gonna do a little line right there on the first stripe, and then we're just gonna go into the second one. We're gonna skip one, and then just kind of every other one we're just gonna fill it in with gray, just like that. Okay, so that's good. I'm gonna grab a little more, and then we're gonna go down here. We're gonna add right here, and then we're gonna skip this little area and then add a little more there, and then we're gonna actually kind of make our own stripe here, just a little bit like that. There we go. That way we can emphasize this one right here when it comes time to color it in. And then just this last one on the bottom. And we're gonna grab a little more gray, and then just right here, just gonna, in the background, behind her legs, we're just gonna cover that in. And then also add a little bit right here. And a little more, and then we're going to make another stripe here. We're going to leave in between some space, and then right here we're going to add another stripe that we will be making it up like that. Okay, and then we're going to count. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the fifth one, it's actually the sixth one. On the sixth one, we're gonna go make a stripe like that, and we're gonna kind of curve it down. We're not gonna worry too much about all the curves. Maybe right here, when we get to this part, we're gonna go over a little bit to show as if it's folding. So you don't want it to be a perfect curve. You just kind of want to add some jaggedness to it, because that'll help create that illusion of folds. And then I'm gonna add a little bit right there, and a little bit right here, and a little bit right here. And that's pretty much it. So we're good on that. I'm gonna rinse off my brush. Now we're gonna get a little bit of the brown right here, a little more brown. And this brown is too bright, so we want to get a little bit of green, because it brings it down, it dulls it down a little bit. And this is the brown. We're also picking up a little bit of the blue that's over here already. And this is a good color brown for the base color for the hair of the girl on the right. So we're just going to go ahead and fill that in. Just very slowly. There we go. Like that. Move into the next part. Like that. Maybe a little bit of kind of like put some dots over here to try to add kind of like a texture for the hairs. It's okay if you don't get it perfectly. Okay, we're good with that. Maybe just a little more right there. Like that. So that's good. We'll go ahead and we'll leave that alone for now. We'll rinse our brush. And we'll go ahead and we'll mix some for her hair. The way we'll do that is basically the same colors that are right here. We're just gonna grab some of the black and then kind of mix it in with the brown. But we want it to be much darker. It's a much darker grayish brown. Okay, maybe a little more of the dark blackish blue right here. Okay, that was good. Okay, so we're just gonna fill all this in like that. Maybe some stripes here, some short strokes just to show the hair coming down around her shoulders, and then over here. And right there. Okay, and then just take your time. We're just doing a flat wash. We're not trying to get any texture in. Just a little bit of strokes there just to show the fibers of the hair kind of like fraying out. And that's it. Rinse off our brush. And we're gonna let that dry. Next, we can actually use this area right here, the black that's in the corner. We're just gonna mix it up, make it even, intensify it even more with the brown that's already there. What we're gonna do for this is we're actually gonna use this as the shadow, so we can make it appear as though they're walking on a solid surface and they're not just floating out in space. The way we'll do that is basically kind of put the brush down and then just kind of press it against the paper and drag it out, because it'll help give you some of that texture underneath. And just kind of like that, just a little bit, maybe a little bit on that side. So that's good on that end. And now for her, we're just gonna go right here, kind of around the shoe and kind of connecting with the other shoe, and then just press the brush against the paper and then just kind of drag it out. Do that maybe 2 or 3 times until you get a texture that looks good enough for you. Okay. Looks pretty good. And then next, we can start focusing more on the jeans. They're fully dried now. So we'll grab the blue, the dark blue. Go ahead and we'll mix it in right here. And that's a pretty good dark blue jean looking color. The way we'll do it is we're gonna cover right here. Just kind of go right in around the edges. Like that. And right beneath the knee, this whole area is in shadow, so we can go ahead and do that. Give a little bit of an outline right there. And then just kind of some strokes for the folds, like that. And then cover all of this in. And then some more strokes on this side, like that. And then an outline on this end. And an outline on this end. Now we're gonna rinse off our brush, dry it off, leave just a slight amount of moisture in the brush. And then we're gonna just fade out those edges. Just like that. On both sides. It's okay if it doesn't look perfect, but you can kind of see the effect that it creates. Rinse off our brush, dry it off again, and repeat. Kind of just a little bit here and there, dulling down some of the edges. You want to create some hard edges and some soft edges of the colors as they mix in. And then we'll grab some more of our color over here. We'll go ahead and we'll apply it down here where this leg is. And then a little more just to show the difference in the shadow. The way that the light is hitting them is kind of like at an angle this way. And then we can fill this in. And then rinse off our brush, dry it off, and then dry it off again. And then just kind of create that gradation from dark to light. So far the jeans are looking pretty good. We will leave them as they are so that they can dry before we apply another coat. Next, what we'll do is we'll grab a little more of the black, go right there. We don't need too much. And then maybe add a little water, kind of mix it in, and then maybe get a little bit on the brush and then kind of clear it off by rubbing it across the edge of the plate or your mixing surface. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll apply a bunch of it right here, just like this. And then we're gonna go all the way around. The lady on the right doesn't have too many curves, so we can just kind of apply it like this, creating a shadow. There we go. Rinse off our brush, dry off the brush, and then we'll go ahead and we'll grab the edge and then just kind of dry it off again and just kind of expand it like that. I'm gonna do that repeatedly and do that a bunch of times. And if it doesn't look exactly as you want it to, that's okay, because we will go ahead and apply another layer of the darker color. We're just gonna give that a chance to dry. And while that's drying, we can go ahead and get a little bit of the brown, mix it in right here, and get a little bit of this darker brown. Okay, a little more, just a little. Okay, there we go. So kind of clear your brush a little bit against your mixing surface. What we'll do here is basically we're going to create horizontal and vertical lines only on the sweater around her waist, so we can create that flannel pattern. And the way we'll do that is we'll start off right here, just a line like this, a line like this, just vertical lines, and then horizontal line and give it a little bit of a curve as it goes behind her legs. Get a little more color and then create some horizontal, except there's a little bit of an angle because we're trying to follow the way that the sweater is folding around her, because she has it wrapped around. And then a vertical line going down right there, and then another vertical line. Grab a little more color and then do a horizontal line. Now we're just kind of wrapping around the sleeves, and it's not perfectly horizontal, it's a little bit of an angle, again trying to follow the curvature of the clothing itself so that we can really make it appear as though it's part of the pattern for the clothing. Like that. And then we're just gonna do one little line right there, like that, and another one on the edge of the sleeve, like that. I'm gonna do a line right there. I'm gonna do a line right there, and another one at the edge. We're gonna do another horizontal line following the curvature of the sweater, and then one vertical, another vertical, and then we're almost done. In the bottom here, we're gonna go like that and then curve it a little bit, and another one, and then a horizontal one that curves up, and another one, and that's it. Rinse off our brush. So far so good. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a little more of the blue and mix it in down here, the dark blue, a little more. Go ahead and mix it in down here. And now we're really starting to push those values. And we'll go ahead and do a little horizontal mark right there. And then a little bit more for the folds. I'm gonna do one vertical for where the zipper is, like that, and then a little bit of an outline, just a little, not too much. And when we get down here to the bottom where the knee bend is, we're gonna go ahead and add a lot more darker tones so that we can emphasize the shadow. And then also a little bit of an outline for the leg right there. I'm gonna grab a little more, and then right here, and then like that. A little bit, not as much as before, not as much. We just want to give some definition. And then on the other side of the leg, like that, maybe a little more darkness right there, but also there's a fold right here that we're just gonna do a couple of lines like that. So that's good so far. Rinse off our brush, dry it off, and then come in and then just get that line like that, and then a little bit over here like that. Not as much as before, but kind of just building it up a little bit. There we go. And rinse off our brush. And then grab a little bit of the black, and then we can go ahead and work back on the tank top. We'll go ahead and we'll go in like this, and like that, and then just kind of build it up and give a little bit of curvature just to show where some of the light is hitting on top of her chest, but not too much. As I said before, the girl on the right here doesn't have too many curves, so we can just kind of a little bit give that suggestion. Maybe a little more on this side. Like that. And then dry off my brush. So far so good. The next thing that we'll do is actually go to another spot on your mixing plate. I'm gonna just bring in another one. We will go back to those colors, so don't erase them or wipe them off. But we need space for some new colors. And the way we'll do that is grab a little bit of yellow right there, a little more. Add a little bit of water, because we don't want it to be too much pigment, because otherwise it'll stand out a bit of like a highlighter. Basically, we'll just go in the other stripes in between. We'll go ahead and we'll put in the yellow right there. And again, it's okay if you go outside of the lines a little bit. Right there, right there. That one was actually supposed to be light blue, so I totally goofed on that one. So I'm just gonna use my rag, try to pick it up as much as I can. That's okay. So right here, we're gonna add that in like that, like that, like this. On this one, we're gonna skip it. We're gonna leave this one white. This one right next to it is gonna be yellow. And then we're gonna leave this one blank because that one's gonna be blue. We'll go ahead and we'll add a yellow stripe right there and another yellow stripe right there. And that's it for that so far. We'll rinse off our brush. Oh, actually, we need to add some yellow for her shoes right there. Rinse off the brush. And now while we wait for her clothing to dry, we can go ahead and move on back into her clothing. We'll go ahead and go back to our other mixing area. So basically, I'm just gonna grab what's already here, and this is going to be probably the most challenging part of the painting so far. What you want to do is add vertical lines for her shirt or her dress, but you want to follow along with the shape of her body. So initially, it's just very easy. Just kind of follow the initial horizontal line here. So horizontal line like this, and then just a slight curvature. It's okay if you mess up a little bit. Just a slight curvature going up the side of her leg, underneath the shirt that is tied around her waist, or sweater, I should say. And just like that. And grab a little more color, and then going into the next side, and then just kind of try to imagine how her body is, and then wrap those lines around her body, just like that. And go slowly if you need to. Whenever we go in to add the shadows, it'll help emphasize more the folds and everything. I am going to add just a little line right there so we can still see and remember where her leg is, but it'll also serve as a little bit of a shadow. So we're good on that. Go ahead and keep going, moving upwards. Basically just a horizontal line kind of going around, and maybe looking out for where the folds are. Going up. Going up, kind of following the little folds that are sketched out underneath as part of the image, and just going right along. Remember to add a little bit of a curvature. Her clothing is definitely very big on her, so there is a little bit of a kind of like it's almost like it's sagging on her, so it's not like a skin tight clothing like her jeans are. So there's more folds in it because of that, and we'll be able to emphasize them much better once we start laying in the shadows. But for now, if you make some kind of curves in the horizontal lines, it'll help emphasize that it's not a skin tight clothing. It's loose, so it just kind of hangs there. Okay, a little there, a little there. We're almost done. And maybe a little right there. Okay. Step back, take a look at it. Okay, so it all looks pretty good so far. Next, we're gonna grab a little bit of the brown right there, mix it in with the other colors that are surrounding it. And we can actually go ahead and add some contrast to the hair of the girl on the right here. Go ahead and we'll do that, like that. Kind of some strokes just to show the texture of the hair. Just a little bit in there, like that. A little bit following the curve of the hair that leads up to the forehead, like that. There we go. Maybe a little bit back here. And down here. And then we're gonna grab a little more and very slowly and carefully just place it in where her eyebrow is. Take your time. There we go, perfect. Now I'll rinse off my brush. And then I'm gonna grab some of this black over here and then just mix it in with that brown so that we can get the other hair of the other girl. But it's much darker. It has a lot more dark, kind of like gray black. Still has a slight tinge of brown in it, so this is probably good enough right here. I'll go ahead and just lay it down. Not completely, just first along the edge, and then just kind of making some strokes vertical strokes just to show the texture of the hair, and then leaving a good portion of it with the color underneath so that they can see that the light is coming from above. And then right here, just a little bit. Just some short strokes just to show the texture. It does not have to look perfect. Remember that. Okay, and then with what's left on our brush, I'm just gonna go in, just very slowly, just add the eyebrow. And that's that. You could also put like a little dot for the other eyebrow, but I don't think it's really necessary. Go ahead and rinse off our brush. And then I would say this is probably a good point to start mixing the skin tones so we can put those in. The way we'll do the skin tones is we'll grab some of the darker yellow, put it right there, a little bit of the burgundy, mix it in right there, and then add a bunch of water. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. We just need to add some white. I normally don't use white whenever I use watercolors. It's just, this is the kind of the shortcut to tell people how to mix skin tones. Otherwise, I'm probably going to do an entire tutorial on skin tones alone, just because it's a complicated subject that takes practice to get more comfortable with. Grab a little more yellow. Okay, let's see. I'm just using my scrap piece of paper here so I can kind of tell. I think that's a really good skin tone, so I'm liking that one a lot, and we'll go ahead and start coloring in. The first thing we'll do is we're just going to use this color and completely cover in the foot in the back here, and then we'll go ahead and we'll do a small line right there, just like that. We'll go ahead and we'll rinse off our brush, wipe it off, almost just leave the slightest amount of moisture in the brush. We'll go in and we'll just pick up from the pigment that's already on the foot. We'll go ahead and we'll lay it down like that, and that's it. Okay, so we'll do the same. We'll go ahead and we'll grab some of the pigment here that we mixed. We'll go ahead and we'll add a little bit on the end there, and underneath the shirt, and then we'll leave that. Okay, rinse off our brush completely, dry it off, and then just leave just a small amount of moisture in the brush, ever so small. And we'll go ahead and we'll kind of pick up some of that and then just draw it out, and that's it. We're good on that end too. That's a little bit of a cheat whenever painting skin, because the transition from, like, if you can even look at your own skin, it's very, very faint. Like, if you look at my knuckle and right here, where the light is mostly coming from that way, as the light kind of wraps around the skin, it hits the skin less so on this edge, So the shadow is so faint that it's very difficult to capture it if you're just doing layer by layer. That way, if you first lay down the pigment and then draw out, and then use like a barely moist brush to draw out some of the pigment, it'll leave like a very faint trace. So it helps convey that softness that skin has that's so hard to capture. I hope that makes sense. I'm gonna dry off my brush and maybe fix this a little bit over here. Maybe draw out a little more. And next we'll go ahead and we'll focus on the face. So we'll go ahead and we'll grab a little bit of the color that we mixed. We'll go ahead and we'll add it right there. Also right here, and kind of a slight outline for the shadow that's being cast by the chin, as well as back here where the ear is, and also a little bit just because this whole area is further away from the light source. And I'm gonna rinse my brush, dry it off. Still has just a small amount of moisture on it. And then I'm gonna go in and then just grab that color, and then just kind of drag it out very gently. I'm not forcing anything here, just kind of, you're almost letting the water do its own thing and bring the color to the rest of the area. And as you're doing that, you'll also get some of the color on your brush, and you can even use that to further draw it out. You don't necessarily have to keep going back to that specific spot to keep pulling it out, but once you get it on the brush, you can just kind of draw it out, pun intended. And it looks a little messed up right here, but that's okay because we will actually put in a second coat to emphasize those shadows once that base coat is laid in. We'll rinse our brush and dry off my brush, and now we're gonna go ahead and do the same down here, and then just kind of follow along like that. Okay, rinse off my brush completely and then dry it off. I would say maybe 80%, 80 to 90% dry it off, so there's just a little bit of moisture. And then go ahead and start pulling off a little bit from the edge, drag it out to the rest of the arm. And you can see how softly those shadows, that softness that skin has, it just appears as you do that. Because also as you add what little moisture is in the tip of the brush, as you add that in, it also softens that edge that you're pulling from. So it's a very good kind of like shortcut to get the effect. Go ahead and we'll grab some more from here. Put a little bit on right there to show the shadow from the cloth, and then a little bit on the back of the fingers as well as in between the pointing finger and the thumb, or index finger I guess you'd call it. We'll rinse off our brush, dry it off, same thing, just kind of lay it in right there, just very softly like that, and that's it. We're not going to overdo it. And then we're going to grab a little more pigment and go ahead and put in right there, and on the side there. Down here we're going to leave that darker. Then I'm going to rinse off my brush, dry it off, same thing. Just gonna pick up the pigment and then just kind of bring it in to where I need it. Just like that. Dry off my brush. And get some more of the pigment. Do kind of a line out here on the side. Like that. Maybe a little more to show the fold where the tendon is. Or I guess that would be her bone right there. And then a little bit of the shadow coming underneath the dress. Rinse it off, dry it off, and then just go ahead and bring that color in ever so faintly. Okay, that looks good. Rinse it off. Same deal, and we're doing that for all the different parts of the skin that's showing. And then right here, arms pretty easy. You just kind of follow along all the way down. And do a shadow right there. Rinse it off, dry it off, and then bring the color in. Like that. Rinse it off, dry it off. It's just a very slow process. But I really like how the result looks. And feel free to stop and look at the painting at any moment so you can get a feel for how it looks. And then we'll go ahead and we'll do a little line right there for the chin. Just a little line like that. And going down here for the shadow. And then maybe a little bit on this side like that. And also just a little bit for where the nose is, because she's got it kind of tilted, and underneath of the nose is definitely covered in shadow. Hopefully I didn't overdo it. Rinse my brush, dry it off, and go ahead and bring that in. Bring that soft tone just like that, and maybe pick up a little bit from the nose there, kind of cover the face very faintly. Try to be careful about the eyebrow because you don't want to have any of that color run into the face. Okay. We are so close to being done, I promise. And I'm gonna grab a little bit more of that color. Gonna fill in where the fingers are kind of wrapping around. There's a shadow there. There's a shadow underneath from the clothing. And then the rest is pretty much the same thing, or the same tone. So we're just gonna rinse off, dry it off, and then kind of go in and fill in the rest of it. So that looks good. Dry it off, or rinse it off, I mean. And then we're gonna switch back to these colors. Gonna grab some of this blue-gray color that's right here so we can lay down the shadows in her dress where the folds are. Very easy to do. We're just gonna go right on top of what's already there. We're just gonna go like this, a little bit like that, like this. Underneath here, basically we're just showing where the shadow is falling on top of the clothing that's being created either by the shirt that's on top or the folds. So that's good. I'm gonna grab a little bit right here. So here we're gonna go like this, like that, and then this is actually kind of wrapping around her anatomy a little bit, and then right there, back here, because this is a big fold, and also a little bit right there, so we can kind of show where all these folds are, like that, and a little bit in this. Okay, all of that looks good. We can actually do a little bit right here, kind of going like that, and a little on top, just to show that, to emphasize that shadow or that darker part. And other than that, we do need to get, there's a little bit of the light blue right here, just a little bit. So this right here that I mentioned previously, I had messed up. I'm going to dry off my brush. I'm going to get it right there, as well as right here next to the other yellow stripe, and it just goes like that. I messed it up some more there, but that's okay. That's that, and then we can go ahead and grab a little more of the shadow color and go ahead and cover in this area. Just one quick stroke, a little bit like that and like that, to show where the clothing is being covered in shadow by her leg. And get a little more, and then put a little bit of a color right there, a little more shadow like that, as well as down here to fold kind of like that, going up, and then also for where her arm is, some folds going in there, and like that, and rinse it off. Let's see, step back, take a look at it. Perfect. I'm very happy with that one. And we're done. Okay. Hopefully you were able to follow along all the way through and everything made sense. If you have any questions about any of it, please leave a comment down below the video. I'll respond right away. So as long as you're kind of patient with the skin technique, the skin tones technique that I was explaining, usually comes out pretty good. Let me know how yours turned out. Feel free to tag me on social media or to leave a comment, link it somewhere. I'm at Wandering Watercolor on pretty much all social media. So yeah, I'm interested to see how yours turned out. And if you have any questions, shoot me a message. And with that, I'll see you next time.